Thank you very much, guys. Decisive victory here in Game 1 from the GE Tigers. And Crumbs, you have got the GE Tigers all figured out.
That's right. And upon further inspection, this team is really reactive. You know, they don't go out of their way to get these deep boards and set up plays in the future and all this kind of stuff. They are reactive to the point that they will punish the slightest mistake. I mean, previously in any League of Legends iteration, I don't think we've ever seen a team that's able to punish the slightest mistake. For instance, one person getting chunked out, they're able to take a dragon, a 3K gold lead, 0 wards, immediately recognize the situation, take a dragon, and this just shows a caliber of decision-making and knowledge of this team, and it's so impressive to see that they can just go about punishing every single mistake that, as a player, you would look at it and be like, I didn't even know there was a mistake that could be punished.
Yeah, and surely that's also the counter, if you like, to what WE is right now. You know, with 2 new players coming in there, they're not going to be as quick at making decisions. They are going to be disjointed. If you're out of position, like you said, the GE Tigers are going to punish you, whether that's with kills or objectives. So, I don't know. It was a good start for WE. We have to give them that, but the start of games is probably where a team like this can also excel, because they're just playing like they used to play in the solo queue games. Once they start to group up, that's where the problem comes.
It's what we talked about, how GE Tigers, they don't mind falling behind in goal because they can still go towards these mid-game spikes and then look for these mistakes you just mentioned here. We saw that at the Dragon, where suddenly they just completely aced them. 22 minutes in, I believe it was, your 24s on the Corki, you got the Muramana already on your Ezreal. That's where you're strong enough to take these fights. And it's just so scary. I feel like World Elite did what they could in the early game. And as we mentioned, that's where they can get the lead. We saw the LeBlanc play in the mid lane was great, honestly, in the one-on-one against Koro, but it's also kind of expected in the matchup against an Ezreal. I just don't really know how they're going to avoid making any mistakes as a team, because the problem is when you play with LeBlanc around these mid-game dragons here, around the 20-minute, 25-minute mark, and you get such a good start, you need to play around pink wards. And the way you do this, you move into the dragon first, simply because you are stronger in this mid lane, so you got the pressure, you can move before the Ezreal, he has to sit and wave clear. You place 1 or 2 pink wards, and you sit and wait in them with the LeBlanc, and you look for picks left and right. We saw Yoey Flash was trying to do it against Team Solo mid. If you cannot create picks that way, you open up for GE Tigers to get into the dragon area itself and poke you out, and then you have that one mistake that gives the dragon.
I think a big difficulty of overcoming that is the fact that you're running into a wreck site. So if you have to stay perfectly still into the brush, you can face check anything with rockets, with Ezreal Qs, with wreck site Qs, and all of a sudden you find yourself just not being able to walk safely if you don't have perfect vision control. And even in the LCK, the times that we've seen teams being able to beat them has just been when they've completely shut them down in the early game and just played an almost flawless game. And their latest game against Jin Air Falcons, I believe, they were down quite a bit in the early phase, but eventually one mistake and the game was already the Tigers. And unless World Elite is ready to play a perfect game, they're not going to take this.
And that's surely then, you know, the question, what's the number, what's the magic number of gold lead that you need against the GE Tigers? I mean, we saw, I think, about 4,000 with
30,000.
here. 30,000 would probably do it, I'd imagine, yeah. But, you know, if they play these snowbally champions and you get ahead, is that the only way for WE now?
I think it is with WE, because they are good enough as solo queue players, but they gotta get rid of Rek'Sai, because that's again the champion that stop you from setting up these camps here, and then at the same time, we know how good Lee is on the champion, so you gotta get rid of that one, because GE Tigers, as you just said yourself, don't really deward 20 minutes or 10 minutes before.
Yeah, but in any case, a difficult task up ahead for World Elite if they want to come back in this series. We're going to take a short break in a second, but up on the Score Esports, if you download the app, there's a Q&A with Smeb and with Svenskeren up, so you can read that in the break. And we'll be right back with Game 2 of World Elite versus the GE Tigers. Don't go anywhere.